Captain Sarah Chen stood at the edge of the human settlement on Mars, watching the swirling red dust dance across the dome's protective barrier. The year was 2157, and humanity had finally established their first permanent colony on the Red Planet. What they hadn't expected was to find they weren't alone. The alert came during the standard evening maintenance check. Their sensors detected an unknown vessel approaching the Martian atmosphere. Unlike the usual supply ships from Earth, this one moved with an impossible grace, defying known physics. "Captain, the object has landed 2 kilometers from the Eastern Dome," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his voice steady despite the unprecedented situation. "Initial scans show." "Well, you need to see this yourself." Sarah moved to the monitoring station, her heart racing as she studied the readings. The vessel's composition didn't match any known material in their database. More surprising was the atmosphere it was generating around itself, a perfect bubble of breathable air in the harsh Martian environment. "Get the first contact team ready," she ordered, years of training kicking in. "Full protective suits, no weapons visible. We'd follow the peaceful contact protocols." Within 30 minutes, Sarah led a small team of 5 across the Martian surface in their rover. The alien ship loomed ahead of them, its surface shifting colors like an oil slick in sunlight. It stood about 3 stories tall, shaped like a perfect teardrop. As they approached the edge of the alien-generated atmosphere bubble, their rover's systems suddenly powered down. "Don't panic," Sarah commanded, noting how her team's breathing had quickened. "They're probably just being cautious, same as we would be." The side of the vessel shimmed, and a doorway simply appeared, as if the hull had decided to stop existing in that particular spot. A tall figure emerged, easily 7 feet in height. Its body was covered in what appeared to be flowing liquid metal, but moved with obvious intelligence and purpose. Sarah's translator crackled to life, picking up unexpected patterns. The alien was trying to communicate. "I am Nexus Guide through stars." The translation came through, choppy but understandable. "We have watched your kind grow. You have reached a crucial point." Sarah stepped forward, following the protocols they had practiced countless times, but never expected to use. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Mars Colonial Authority. We welcome peaceful contact." The alien's surface rippled, creating patterns that the translator struggled to interpret. "Your kind is unique. Most species reach space through unity. You achieved it through competition and cooperation both. Fascinating paradox." "That's humanity for you," Sarah replied carefully. "We contain multitudes." "Yes, this is why we come now. Your pattern is new to us, different. You spread to this world not through perfect efficiency, but through stumbling, learning, adapting. We wish to understand." Sarah felt a weight settle on her shoulders. This wasn't just first contact. This was humanity's first evaluation by a clearly advanced species. Everything she said next could affect Earth's future. "We're not perfect," she began, choosing her words carefully. "We make mistakes, but we learn from them. We keep trying. It's not the most efficient way, but it's made us who we are." The alien surface swirled with new patterns. "This is what interests us. Efficiency is common. Perfection is predictable. Your messiness creates possibilities we have not seen before." As the sun set behind the alien vessel, casting long shadows across the Martian surface, Sarah realized this was just the beginning. Humanity's greatest test wasn't reaching the stars. It was proving they deserved to be among them. In the distance, the lights of the Mars colony glowed steadily, a beacon of human perseverance. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more revelations. But for now, on this historic evening, representatives of 2 civilizations stood together on the red soil of Mars, beginning a conversation that would change everything. The next morning, Sarah sat in the colony's main conference room, staring at the holographic displays showing data from their alien visitors. Her team had worked through the night, analyzing every bit of information they could gather about the mysterious beings they now called the Luminics. After their shifting, luminescent appearance. The readings make no sense, Dr. Watson, the colony's chief scientist, said while pointing at the charts. Their ship doesn't just ignore our physics. It seems to operate on principles we can't even begin to understand. Lieutenant Rodriguez leaned forward, his face showing concern. That's what worries me. We're completely defenseless against their technology. One wrong move and they've had countless chances to harm us if that was their intention, Sarah interrupted. Let's focus on what we know, not what we fear. A soft chime indicated an incoming message from the alien vessel. Their translator had been working better after the Luminex adjusted their communication patterns to match human understanding. Captain Chen. The message read, "We request permission to share knowledge. Your people learn through direct experience. We wish to demonstrate." Sarah looked at her team. This could be humanity's chance to advance their technology by decades, maybe centuries. But it could also be a trap. What kind of demonstration did you have in mind? She sent back. The response came quickly. We will show you how we see the universe. Your minds are capable of understanding, though none have shown you how to look. After discussing with her team and getting emergency approval from Earth, Sarah agreed to the demonstration. The Luminex requested that 3 humans visit their vessel. Sarah volunteered immediately, along with Dr. Watson and, surprisingly, Lieutenant Rodriguez. Someone needs to watch your back, Rodriguez said with a slight smile when Sarah questioned his decision. As they approached the alien ship in their protective suits, the same energy field that had stopped their rover the day before now seemed to welcome them. Their suits' systems remained fully functional. The entrance appeared just as before, the metal simply ceasing to exist in that space. Inside, the ship's interior shifted and moved like liquid mercury, but somehow formed solid pathways beneath their feet. "Welcome," their alien host's voice came through the translator. "We will now show you what your instruments cannot see." The walls around them suddenly became transparent, but what they saw wasn't the Martian landscape. Instead, they saw streams of energy flowing through space, connecting everything like a vast cosmic web. "This is reality as we perceive it," the Luminex explained. "What you call dark matter, dark energy. These are merely gaps in your understanding. Watch." The alien guide, they still couldn't tell if it was one being or many, extended what looked like a tendril of liquid metal. Where it touched the air, patterns of energy became visible, swirling and connecting in complex dances. Dr. Watson gasped. "The quantum field. We're actually seeing it. This is impossible." "Not impossible," the Luminex corrected. "Simply unknown to you until now. Your species has theorized much of this. You simply lack the tools to see." Sarah watched in awe as the demonstration continued, showing them how gravity bent space, how time flowed like a river with eddies and currents, and how light was just one small part of the universe's vast symphony of energy. But it was Lieutenant Rodriguez who asked the critical question. "Why show us this? Why now?" The Luminex's surface rippled in what they had come to recognize as their equivalent of emphasis. "Because soon you will need to understand. A storm approaches, one that will test all species in this sector of space. Humanity's unique perspective may be crucial to weathering what comes." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine despite her suit's temperature controls. They hadn't just been given a gift of knowledge. They'd been given a warning. The universe, it seemed, was about to become a much more dangerous place. Back in the colony's secure briefing room, Sarah and her team faced a wall of skeptical faces on the video screens. Earth's government representatives had been in emergency sessions since receiving their report about the Luminex's warning. A cosmic storm. Threats to all species. General Hammond's voice crackled through the speakers. "This sounds like science fiction, Captain Chen." Sarah stood straight, her expression firm. "With all due respect, sir, everything about the past 48 hours sounds like science fiction. But it's real, and we need to take it seriously." Dr. Watson stepped forward, his hands shaking slightly as he operated the holographic display. "Look at these readings. The Luminex showed us energy patterns we never knew existed. Our instruments are now picking them up, and they're showing disturbances. The display showed waves of strange energy moving through space, like ripples in a pond heading toward their solar system. Lieutenant Rodriguez pointed to specific areas in the data. According to the Luminex, these patterns shouldn't be here. Something is pushing them toward us, like a tsunami building in space. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Whatever was coming, it was big enough to worry even the advanced Luminex. A new voice joined the conversation. The Luminex representative, speaking through their now refined translator. We have seen 3 civilizations fall to what approaches. They were not ready. They did not understand. They did not adapt. And you think we can? Sarah asked. Your species has qualities we lack. You embrace chaos. You find patterns in disorder. When you fail, you try new approaches. The others, they followed their established paths until those paths led to extinction. General Hammond leaned forward in his screen. What exactly is coming? The Luminex's surface rippled with dark patterns. We call them the Void Hunters. They do not exist as you understand existence. They feed on reality itself, breaking down the barriers between dimensions. They have consumed entire galaxies and other regions of space. Dr. Watson's face went pale. That's what we're seeing in these readings, reality itself being broken down. Correct. But humanity has an advantage. Your minds are flexible. You understand both order and chaos. You may see solutions we cannot. Sarah thought about humanity's history, how they'd survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and near-extinction events. Each time, they'd adapted, changed, and grown stronger. What do you need from us? She asked. We need your perspective. Your scientists must study what we show you. Your military must prepare defenses we cannot imagine. Your artists must dream of new possibilities. All of humanity's diversity, all of your contradictions, they are your strength. General Hammond spoke again, his voice now carrying a note of determination. Captain Chen, effective immediately, your Mars colony is being designated as the primary contact point between humanity and the Luminex. We're sending our best scientists and military strategists on the next transport. There is little time, the Luminex warned. The Void Hunters will reach this sector within one of your Earth years. We must prepare. Sarah looked at her team, seeing the same mix of fear and determination in their eyes that she felt. Then we better get started. Dr. Watson, I want you to begin forming research teams. Lieutenant Rodriguez, start working on defense scenarios. Anything and everything you can think of. The Luminex will provide what data they can. As the meeting ended and people began their tasks, Sarah stayed behind, watching Mars sunset through the dome's windows. The red planet had been humanity's first step into becoming a multi-planet species. Now it would become their first line of defense against a threat they barely understood. She touched the window, feeling the cold glass under her fingers. Somewhere out there, ancient horrors were heading their way. But humanity hadn't come this far to give up now. They would face this challenge as they had faced all others, with innovation, determination, and the unique human ability to find hope in the darkest situations. The real question was, would it be enough? 3 months had passed since the Luminex's warning. The Mars colony had transformed from a simple research outpost into humanity's front line of defense. New buildings had sprung up across the red landscape, connected by transparent tubes that glowed with strange energy patterns, a gift of Luminex technology. Sarah walked through the new research center, where scientists from Earth worked alongside the Luminex. Dr. Watson waved her over to his station, dark circles under his eyes showing how little he'd slept. Captain, you need to see this, he said, pointing to his screen. We've made a breakthrough. The display showed what looked like a bubble of energy, but inside it, normal physics seemed to break down completely. Small objects placed inside the bubble simply disappeared. The Void Hunters exist in what we're calling null space, a place where our universe's rules don't apply. Dr. Watson explained. But we found something interesting. Human minds can actually perceive null space better than the Luminex can. What do you mean? Sarah asked, leaning closer to the display. The Luminex think in patterns of pure logic, but null space doesn't follow logical rules. Human imagination, our ability to think in abstractions and impossibilities, lets us understand it better. Lieutenant Rodriguez joined them, carrying new security reports. That matches what we're seeing in combat simulations. The Luminex fighting strategies all fail because they're too predictable. But when we add human unpredictability to the mix, we start seeing better results. The Luminex representative appeared beside them, its surface showing rapid patterns of blue and gold. Your species continues to surprise us. You see solutions where we see only problems. But we have detected something troubling. The alien brought up a new display, showing the energy waves they'd been tracking. The Void Hunters are moving faster than we calculated. They will arrive in 6 months, not 12. Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. 6 months. That's not enough time to prepare Earth's defenses. Perhaps it is enough time to prepare a different kind of defense, the Luminex suggested. We have been studying your human concept of traps. Lieutenant Rodriguez straightened up. Traps, against something that eats reality. Yes. Your military history shows many examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through deception and misdirection. Concepts our species never considered until we met humans. Dr. Watson's eyes lit up with sudden understanding. The bubble experiment. What if we could use it to create a trap? Not to destroy the Void Hunters, but to redirect them. Like a cosmic bullfighting move, Rodriguez added, earning confused ripples from the Luminex. Sarah looked at the data again. How big of a bubble could we create? With combined human and Luminex technology, large enough to redirect the main force of the Void Hunters. The alien answered, but it would require precise timing. And human instincts, Sarah finished, because no purely logical species could predict how to fight an illogical enemy. The Luminex's surface showed patterns they'd come to recognize as agreement. This is why we sought your help. Your species embraces paradox. You plan for chaos. You imagine the impossible. Sarah turned to her team. Dr. Watson, I want you to focus everything on developing this bubble technology. Lieutenant Rodriguez, start working on tactical scenarios. The crazier the better. We're going to show these Void Hunters why you should never underestimate human creativity. As her team rushed off to their tasks, Sarah stayed with the Luminex. You didn't just come to us for help, did you? You came to us because you knew only humans would be crazy enough to try fighting beings that shouldn't exist. The alien's surface rippled with what might have been amusement. Perhaps we recognize that in an illogical universe, the most logical choice is to embrace illogic. Sarah smiled. Now you're starting to think like a human. Outside the research center, the Martian sunset painted the sky in shades of red and gold. In 6 months, that sky would become a battlefield. But for the first time since the Luminex arrived, Sarah felt real hope. Sometimes the best way to fight monsters wasn't with perfect logic, but with the beautiful unpredictability of the human spirit. The prototype of the reality bubble stood before them like a giant soap bubble, shimmering with impossible colors. 5 months had passed, and time was running out. Sarah watched as Dr. Watson made final adjustments to the massive device they dubbed the mouse trap. Everything we know about physics says this shouldn't work, Dr. Watson muttered, checking readings on his tablet. But then again, everything we knew about physics went out the window when the Luminex arrived. Lieutenant Rodriguez stood at the security console, monitoring the space around Mars. Speaking of things that shouldn't work, the early warning system just picked up something strange. You need to see this. The main screen showed a portion of space that seemed to be missing. Not dark, not empty, but simply absent, as if someone had cut a hole in reality itself. They're early, the Luminex representative announced, its surface turning a deep, troubled purple. A scout group of void hunters, testing our defenses. Sarah's training kicked in. How long until they reach Mars? 3 hours. They are curious about the bubble. As we hoped. The plan they'd developed was risky, maybe even crazy. Use the bubble as bait, drawing the void hunters into a trap that would redirect them into a parallel dimension. The Luminex had provided the technology, but the strategy was pure human ingenuity. All personnel to battle stations, Sarah commanded through the colony's communication system. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. The colony burst into organized chaos. Scientists rushed to power up the bubble. Security teams moved into position, and medical teams prepared for any outcome. They had practiced this, but now it was real. "Captain," Dr. Watson called out, "we have a problem. The bubble's power consumption is higher than our calculations predicted. We don't have enough energy to maintain it for more than 20 minutes. Sarah turned to the Luminex. "Can your ship provide additional power?" "Negative. Our systems are incompatible with the modified technology. The changes that make it effective against the Void Hunters prevent us from integrating our power source." Lieutenant Rodriguez stepped forward. "What about the colony's fusion reactor? If we redirect all power, including life support, we'd have 15 minutes of air," Dr. Watson finished. "Maybe less." Sarah looked at her team, then at the approaching void in space. Sometimes being human meant making impossible choices. "Do it," she ordered. "Redirect all power except minimal life support. Everyone not essential to the operation, get to the emergency shelters now." As the colony's lights dimmed and non-essential systems shut down, Sarah felt the temperature begin to drop. They had minutes to prove that humanity's crazy plan could work. The Luminex moved closer to the main display. The scout group is entering the outer defense perimeter. They are behaving unusually. On the screen, the void seemed to ripple, as if testing the space around it. The bubble's energy signature had caught their attention, just as planned. "They're like cats chasing a laser pointer," Rodriguez commented. "Let's hope they take the bait." Dr. Watson's voice was tense. "Bubble power at maximum. Ready to initiate the dimensional shift on your command, Captain." Sarah watched as the void moved closer, drawn to the bubble's strange energy signature. Everything they knew about the Void Hunters suggested they couldn't resist investigating such an anomaly. It was like leaving a puzzle for them to solve, a puzzle that would become their undoing. 10 seconds until optimal position, the Luminex announced. The colony's air was getting thin. Frost was forming on the windows, but no one moved from their stations. 5 seconds. Sarah took a deep breath of the increasingly precious air. "Humanity's first battle against the Void Hunters," she said quietly. "Let's make it count." 3, 2, 1. The bubble flared with blinding light, and reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Now, the bubble pulsed with blinding energy, and for a moment, everything in the control room seemed to freeze. Sarah felt a strange sensation, as if reality itself was bending around them. Then, with a silent flash, both the bubble and the void disappeared. "Did it work?" she asked, her voice hoarse in the thin air. Dr. Watson frantically checked his instruments. "The scout group, they're gone. The dimensional shift worked exactly as we planned. They've been redirected to parallel space." The victory celebration was cut short by warning alarms. The colony's power systems were critically low, and the temperature had dropped to dangerous levels. Frost covered every surface, and breathing was becoming difficult. "Restore power to life support," Sarah ordered, her breath visible in the freezing air. "Now." The Luminex moved quickly to their systems. "We detect no trace of the Void Hunters in this sector. Redirecting power." Slowly, warmth began returning to the colony. The lights brightened, and the air grew easier to breathe. But Lieutenant Rodriguez's expression remained grim as he studied the long-range scanners. "Captain," he called out, "you need to see this. The main force, they've changed course. They're coming straight for us now." The main screen showed a massive tear in space, far larger than the scout group's void. The Void Hunters had noticed what happened to their scouts, and they weren't happy about it. How long? Sarah asked. At their current speed, less than 24 hours, the Luminex answered. They have accelerated beyond our predictions. Your success with the scouts has provoked them. Dr. Watson ran calculations on his tablet. We don't have enough power to create another bubble that size. The scout group nearly drained us. A bubble large enough for the main force would need more power than Earth and Mars combined could generate. Sarah finished. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Their victory over the scouts had only made things worse. Now the entire Void Hunter force was heading straight for them, and they had no way to stop them. But the Luminex's surface suddenly began showing rapid patterns of blue and gold, their equivalent of excitement. Perhaps, the alien said, we are approaching this problem with too much logic. What is the human phrase? Fighting fire with fire. Lieutenant Rodriguez straightened up. You're suggesting we fight void with void. The human concept of using an enemy's strength against them. We have studied your martial arts. Sometimes the strongest force can be redirected with minimal energy. Dr. Watson's eyes widened. The bubble doesn't need to be big enough to trap them. It just needs to be big enough to show them the way. Sarah finished, understanding dawning. Like creating a small crack that grows larger under pressure. We make a tiny tear in reality. And let their own power make it bigger, the Luminex confirmed. We cannot overpower them, but we can redirect them. Sarah turned to her team. Dr. Watson, how quickly can you reconfigure the bubble generator for this new approach? With the Luminex's help, maybe 20 hours. But Captain, this is even riskier than our original plan. If we make even a tiny miscalculation, then we'll have given the Void Hunters exactly what they want, a direct path to Earth. Rodriguez finished grimly. Sarah looked at the main screen, where the approaching void was growing larger. Sometimes being human meant not just thinking outside the box, but destroying the box entirely. We've got 20 hours to perfect a plan that's never been tried before, using technology we barely understand, to fight an enemy that shouldn't exist, she said. In other words, just another day at the office for humanity. The Luminex's surface showed patterns of what might have been admiration. Your species continues to surprise us. When faced with impossible odds, you do not despair. You joke. That's because we haven't lost yet, Sarah replied, her voice firm. And we don't intend to start now. With only 2 hours remaining until the Void Hunters arrived, the Mars colony hummed with nervous energy. The modified bubble generator stood ready, looking deceptively small for something meant to save humanity. Dr. Watson hadn't slept in 36 hours, but his hands were steady as he made the final adjustments. Theory is one thing, he muttered, checking readings for the 100th time. But we're about to tear a hole in reality and hope the laws of physics work the way we think they do. Sarah watched as Lieutenant Rodriguez coordinated with Earth's defense forces. They had evacuated everyone except the essential personnel from the colony, but Earth remained vulnerable if their plan failed. All ships are in position, Rodriguez reported. They're ready to attempt the backup plan if we fail. Everyone knew the backup plan was pointless. Earth's most powerful weapons would be useless against beings that could eat reality itself. Everything depended on what happened here on Mars. The Luminex approached Sarah, their surface showing complex patterns she'd never seen before. We have existed for millennia, they said. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. But we have never seen a species face extinction with such determination. That's because we're too stubborn to accept defeat, Sarah replied with a tight smile. And too crazy to know when we're beaten. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the colony. The main screen showed a massive distortion approaching, larger than anything they'd seen before. The Void Hunters have entered the Mars orbital zone, Rodriguez announced. They'll be in range in 10 minutes. Dr. Watson stepped back from the bubble generator. It's ready. But Captain, There's something you need to know. Sarah saw the look in his eyes. What's wrong? The calculations. Someone will need to manually adjust the bubble's frequency as the void expands. The computer can't react fast enough to the quantum fluctuations. And, Sarah prompted, though she already knew what he would say. And whoever does it will be standing at ground zero when we tear a hole in reality. The room fell silent. They all understood what that meant. Whoever took that position would likely be pulled into the void along with the hunters. I'll do it, Sarah said before anyone could volunteer. I need everyone else coordinating the operation. Dr. Watson, show me what to do. The Luminix moved forward. Captain Chen, the probability of survival is not relevant. Sarah interrupted. Sometimes being human means doing what needs to be done, regardless of the odds. As Dr. Watson quickly explained the controls, Sarah looked at her team. They had come so far together. These humans and aliens, facing an impossible threat with innovation and courage. 5 minutes to contact, Rodriguez announced, his voice tight with emotion. Sarah took her position at the controls. Through the colony's windows, she could see the void approaching, a massive tear in the fabric of reality that seemed to devour the stars themselves. Remember, Dr. Watson said, you'll need to maintain the frequency balance exactly as we practiced. Too much power, and the tear becomes uncontrollable. Too little, and the hunters will break through. Like threading a needle, Sarah said, except the needle is a hole in reality, and the thread is a force that eats universes. No pressure. The Luminex's surface showed patterns of respect. Your species uses humor even now. We are honored to have known humans, whatever the outcome. 3 minutes, Rodriguez called out. Sarah took a deep breath. Start the power-up sequence. And if this works, make sure Earth knows that humanity's first line of defense held strong. The bubble generator hummed to life as the void grew larger in the sky. Sarah's hands moved to the controls, ready to guide an impossible weapon against an impossible enemy. Sometimes being human meant standing your ground when the universe itself seemed to be falling apart. 1 minute to contact. Sarah smiled. Let's show these void hunters why you should never corner a species that invented both nuclear physics and interpretive dance. The void loomed closer, and the final battle for humanity's survival was about to begin. The void filled the Martian sky like a massive black wound. Sarah's hands moved across the bubble generator's controls as reality itself seemed to bend around them. The colony's reinforced windows creaked under the immense pressure. Contact in 10 seconds, Rodriguez called out. Sarah took one last look at her team. Whatever happens, it's been an honor. 5 seconds. The bubble generator hummed, creating a small tear in space, their doorway to another dimension. Sarah watched the readings, adjusting frequencies with precise movements. They've reached the outer perimeter, Dr. Watson announced. The bubble is holding stable. The void hunters sensed the tear, just as they had with the scouts. But this time, instead of investigating cautiously, they surged forward with overwhelming force. They're attacking the bubble directly, Rodriguez shouted. Sarah's fingers flew across the controls, maintaining the delicate balance. That's right, she muttered. Come and get it. The void pressed against their artificial tear, trying to break through. But instead of resisting, Sarah carefully adjusted the frequencies, letting the hunter's own power widen the opening. It's working, Dr. Watson exclaimed. The dimensional shift is starting. The Luminex's surface pulsed with excitement. Remarkable. They are being drawn in by their own force. But something was wrong. Sarah felt the control panel growing hot under her hands. The readings were spiking into red zones. The power core is overloading, Dr. Watson warned. We're losing containment. Sarah made a split-second decision. Lieutenant, activate the emergency protocols. Get everyone out. Captain, if we leave now. That's an order. I can hold it together long enough to finish this, but only if I don't have to worry about anyone else. The Luminix moved forward. We will not abandon. Yes, you will, Sarah interrupted. Humanity's first contact with an advanced species can't end with both sides being destroyed. Someone needs to tell Earth how this ends. Rodriguez hesitated for just a moment, then began evacuating the room. Dr. Watson grabbed his tablet, tears in his eyes. Captain, Sarah, it's been an honor. The room emptied quickly, leaving Sarah alone with the controls. Through the windows, she could see the void being pulled into their artificial tear, like water down a drain. But the process was becoming unstable. Warning alarms blared as the power core reached critical levels. The control panel was now hot enough to burn her hands, but Sarah kept adjusting, kept balancing. "Come on," she whispered. "Just a little more." The void swirled faster, most of its mass now being drawn into the tear. But the generator was failing, circuits melting under the strain. Sarah looked up at the Martian sky one last time. Sometimes being human means. The control panel exploded in a shower of sparks. Sarah was thrown backward as reality seemed to twist inside out. For a moment, she saw every possible universe at once, an infinity of possibilities stretching out before her. Then, darkness. Captain Chen. Sarah opened her eyes to find herself in the colony's medical bay. Dr. Watson, Rodriguez, and the Luminex stood around her bed. "Did we?" she tried to ask. "See for yourself," Rodriguez said, pointing to the window. The Martian sky was clear. No void. No tears in reality. Just the familiar red planet's landscape. The Void Hunters were completely redirected. The Luminex explained. "Your plan worked perfectly. But at the last moment, something unexpected happened." "What?" Dr. Watson smiled. "The tear, it closed itself, as if the universe itself decided to help. You were thrown clear just before the generator exploded." "Impossible," Sarah said. The Luminex's surface showed patterns of amusement. "We are learning that with humans, impossible is a relative term." Sarah laughed, then winced at her injuries. "So what happens now?" "Now," the Luminex said, "we begin a new chapter. Earth has invited us to establish permanent diplomatic relations. Your species has proven itself not just capable of survival, but worthy of alliance." Sarah looked out at the Martian landscape, where human buildings stood alongside Luminex architecture. Against all odds, they had faced an impossible enemy and won. Not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through creativity, courage, and the uniquely human ability to look at certain doom and say, maybe not. "Well," she said with a smile, "I guess first contact wasn't so complicated after all." The Luminex's surface rippled with what was definitely laughter. They were learning human humor after all.